Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session of Flutter Original. And this week, I have one of the most famous, prolific, I don't know, this guy. He has done a lot for Flutter community. You probably have used his packages already. He has amazing packages, and I am honored to have him in this show to talk about some of his packages, or in fact, one or two of his packages. But let me introduce you to Simon. Simon, hello.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks. Thanks for having me. It's so cool to be here.
Very, very glad to have you in this show. Can you introduce yourself? So first of all, let us know who you are, what you've done,
Yeah, so
and why I said you are prolific.
yeah, first of all, I would say I'm certainly not famous. I just like building open source packages and contributing a little bit. And for my work, I work at ClickUp on the mobile app. It's also written in Flutter. And yeah, in my free time, I like to build Flutter packages.
That's very good, Simon. So you have so many packages, I believe, right? I guess the famous one might be Hive, Izar, or Dardex, Logger, your maintainer, I believe. So tell us about your packages first of all. Let us know what you've done so far.
Yeah, so I started with auto-size text because I came from native Android, and there's a really cool text view that can resize your text based on the constraints. And I missed that in Flutter, and there is an issue, and it says would be a good package. And when I was new to Flutter, I thought, yeah, it would really be a cool package. So I started working on it, and it was rather easy to implement, and a lot of people love it.
Yeah, is that the package that you actually type the text and it will automatically resize the text to the next line?
Exactly,
Or
yeah.
not next line, like
Yeah, it looks
okay,
how much space is available, and then it tries to resize your text to fit the space.
that's very cool. That's one of the best. I think it's Flutter favorite too, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I'm really proud that I got that badge.
Okay, that's very good. That's very good. So I know that you've done even more.
Yeah, the next one is Logger. It's a small package, and it lets you customize the stuff you print to the console. For example, it lets you give it color, and it has some borders to put around it. And I had the problem that sometimes I lost my own log messages with all the stuff being printed. So I wanted to make them more easy to find, and yeah, this package just gives them color.
That's very nice. I think the Logger one is based on some kind of well-known packages in Android world.
It
I
is,
think
yeah.
there's another. Yeah, okay.
I forgot the name, but I didn't come up with it myself. I saw it somewhere, and I thought this would be cool to have in Flutter, and yeah.
Yeah, sure. So other packages?
Hive is the next one, and it was, I think, 3 years almost ago when I used Flutter, and there was only SQLite available at the time. And while SQLite is great, it's also a little difficult to use. Like, you have to create tables, and you have to upgrade them. You have to decide which type to use and things like that. So, and I also wanted a database that was written in Dart and run only with Dart, no native dependencies, no Android stuff, and so on. And that's why I came up with Hive. And it's actually like maybe shared preferences on steroids. You can put all kinds of different data in your boxes. That's what collections are called. And yeah, I hope it's easy to use. And I tried my best to make the documentation easy to understand, and it should be quick to get started.
Okay, I know that you also have done another database package.
Yeah.
Let's say. So
more recently,
you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. More recently, while Hive is great, there are also some downsides. Maybe we can talk about it later. And that's
Yeah.
why I came up with ISA, and it uses, it has native dependencies, so it has a native core written in Rust, and it's much faster, has queries and stuff like that. And recently I even announced web support, so you can run the database on all platforms available to Dart and Flutter.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. And well, any other packages?
Not that I know of. Maybe I forgot one, but I don't think so. Oh,
Yeah,
yes, there is another one. Dart
there is
X, it's
another one
called.
actually. I was
Yeah,
I was about to say like Dardex.
yeah. um, when extensions, static extensions functions were announced, I was super excited and I started right away to implement all the extensions I were missing from Kotlin. And yeah, .x is just a collection of useful extension functions like
Yes.
list modifiers, sort by, and then by. And one I really miss a lot in Flutter is first or null for lists. And that's what .x is.
For this particular show, Simon, I am very interested in the database packages, both of them. You have done two of them, which looks very, very promising and nice to me. One of them you mentioned was Hive, and another one was Izar
Yeah.
or Izar. I
Yeah, in
think you
German
said
it's ISA actually, but everyone calls it ISA, so I started to use ISA too.
yes. Let, just in parentheses, what is Izar? Is it some place names or something special in German?
Yeah, it's a river right outside of my apartment, and I didn't have a name, so I used that.
That's cool. That's cool. Okay. So, first of all, tell me one thing. Like, what is the difference between these two packages? Like, you mentioned both of them are kind of database. In one of them, you mentioned NoSQL. Maybe there is a difference over there as well. But do you want to a little bit elaborate on these two databases and why you have created two database packages? What are the main differences, for example, here?
That's a great question, and I get it all the time. So Hive is actually what you call a key value database. So you give it a key, much like a map, and you can put a value, you can associate a value to that key, and later, or when the app is killed and restarts, you can get the key back, the value, and that's pretty much it. You can also iterate over all your keys and values, but it's not much more than that. And it's super easy to use, but there are some downsides. For example, because it's implemented in Dart, it's difficult to support multiple isolates because they would need to synchronize somehow. And I tried it, but it was a lot of overhead. And also, Dart objects use maybe, yeah, they use a lot more RAM than native objects. So that was also a downside. And some native APIs like memory mapping was missing from Dart when I was writing ISA and Hive. And that's why I decided to go with a native backend written in Rust and implement ISA in Dart to use it easily.
I
And
see.
ISA is much more like a database that people know, maybe SQLite. It has queries, it has watches. You can be notified when something changes. It has relationships between objects, and you can access it from multiple isolates and run operations in parallel.
Mhm. Interesting. So I think in Hive you have some kind of. You mentioned. I need to ask this before you jump into the IZAR or IZAR. Um, so you compare your package Hive with a couple of other packages, or maybe implementation. I don't remember what was it. Is it a SQLite or something? And what I remember is like this package is quite performant. So you've worked on the performance of the package quite a lot. You want to tell something about it?
Yeah, I did, but it's less my achievement and more the fact that it runs in native Dart and doesn't have to use the expensive platform channels. Or I'm not even sure if they are still as expensive as back then, but SQLite runs natively in Android or iOS, and then it has to go through platform channels, and that's super slow. And shared preferences is the same. And that's where the big advantage of Hive is. It has no platform channels, and so it can perform your operations much faster.
So, if I understood this correctly, you mentioned that you've written some kind of Rust backend, and then
For
you hooked
ISA,
it,
yeah.
and then you hooked it into for ISAR.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that you mentioned about Hive. Just talk about the ISAR a bit. So then, what is ISAR? The differences
Yeah,
between
so
Hive and ISAR.
ISAR is using the Rust backend, and it can store even millions of objects without problems. In Hive, if you store too many objects, you will get memory problems, and it will also slow the start of your app down a little bit. But ISAR can store millions of objects and search them and find relationships without problems because all your operations run in a separate thread, and they won't slow down your main isolate and your UI.
I see. So then in ISAR, you've written this Rust backend as you mentioned, and then you kind of with maybe Dart FFI or something, you hooked it
Exactly. Yeah.
to the Dart. Okay, so that's why it's also running in a different thread, and well, but that is very interesting. That is very interesting. I think you should promise right now in this show, in between of it, like in front of everyone, that you will come to this show and tell us about the implementation of either. So I'm really interested in the Rust backend and the way that you hooked it with the FFI, and that can be a very interesting for sure topic for many of Flutter developers. You
I'd
can,
love to. Yeah.
yeah, perfect. So this is recorded right now. You cannot change your word. All right.
Yeah. And when I started the implementation, there weren't a lot of tutorials and documentation. So maybe we can help the community a little bit and shed some light on how to implement FFI stuff.
Absolutely. So then, if today we want to pair a program together, we have two options. Let's say I want to define a scenario right now for you, Simon, and you, as an author of these packages and an experienced developer, tell me which one is better to choose.
Sounds good.
I have several settings for my users where I want to kind of hydrate them in the device, and store them also on the device in some kind of database on their profile page, for example. So there are not many of those settings because it's just settings, maybe a few of them. And well, one question also here is that which database is good? Another question is that I do have a backend, like an API that I can send back and forth these settings. And do you see any benefit of having this database? Why would we even have a client-side database inside a Flutter application if I have that backend? That can be also an interesting question if you can answer.
Yeah, let's start with that. I get these questions often because many apps are online and synchronized and everything. But people always forget that often you don't have data connection. If you're in a subway, if you visit your grandma and she has no Wi-Fi and you have bad reception, you don't want to cripple your app because there is no connection. And also, don't forget that data connection can be slow sometimes. So if the app boots up and isn't finished with fetching the data from the server, you need some defaults to quickly update your UI or show dark mode or whatever. And that's where you should use a local database.
Okay.
And the other question, which one to use in this case, you mentioned it's not too many settings. And probably they also have different data types like booleans or strings or integers. And Hive is the perfect use case for this because it's easy to use, not much overhead. You don't need to define models or anything, and you can store whatever data you like.
Okay, sounds good. So then you suggest Hive. So maybe we should go with Hive. I have one more scenario before we start pair programming for Hive. Tell me if this
Yeah.
is a good scenario for Izar or Izar. Oh, I kept telling the incorrect name. I have now a list of, let's say, I have an MJ Coffee app, which is going to be an e-commerce coffee platform. So there is a list of coffees. You can select coffees. You can add to these coffees, maybe place an order, things like that. And I was thinking maybe then to, as you said, not to cripple my user, maybe it's a good idea to let my user continue working with the application all the time and store everything in the application where they see the list of coffees, they can just go and enter, change the order. And let's say at the time of submitting, then suddenly, well, there is a problem with HTTP and I'm not able to send that. So in that case, I want to store this order in a local, let's say, database on the device, and I want to tell to my user that hey, we are storing your data. As soon as the problem is resolved with the connectivity, we will send your order and we will notify you. That's probably a common use case, right, in mobile applications. So
Yeah.
in this case, there are a lot of different types, a lot of different data sets, and well, who knows? Maybe I want to also store the list of orders and might be a big list and things like that. Is this a good use case for Izar or Izar database?
Yeah, it's a great use case. Maybe you even have relationships between orders and products
Absolutely.
and which user ordered. Yeah, and that's a great use case for ISA. Or you want to make the order searchable.
Exactly. Yes.
And you need to search some text in the order description or something like that. And that's a great use cases for ISA. And not so easy to implement with Hive because you would need to do the filtering in Dart and it's slow and not very responsive. So use ISA for
Oh,
that.
that's perfect. So then, to quickly give some ideas to whoever is watching right now, for example, and they don't know this type of scenario, let's say I can create some kind of, maybe column or something in the database. And then I just mentioned this is the orders that are not submitted yet to the backend. And then in the list of order in my customer, I can read them locally, but there is no order in the backend because, well, we have not sent this order. So we can constantly probably check if the connectivity is back, then we can actually sync back these data to submit these to the backend. So this is probably a very good use case for Izar, let's say, and make the application fully capable. And a lot of applications actually they have many interactivity with the application that does not need to go over wire over HTTP. Let's say it can stay on the app until the user is kind of finished. There is one downside to though that is like if they suddenly stop and they go to another device, they might not to see sync data. But probably, I'm not sure if you have thought about some kind of solution for Izar, which can also hydrate these type of data. I know that there is no backend there. I mean, maybe you have some kind of middleware between your database and the connection or the API that we provide to database, and that can sync back and forth, something like that. I'm not sure if there is.
I have thought about it and I definitely want to implement it, but it has to be free for
Yeah.
everyone. I don't want like a paid model where you need to subscribe something and pay for servers or something like that. And it should also work for every use case. And there are so many
Okay.
different use cases and types of synchronization and conflict resolution. It's super complicated. So I didn't find the perfect solution yet, but it's coming for
Yeah,
sure.
sounds good. So it's more tempting right now. I guess then for this session, let's get a start pair programming on Hive because that's a use case that I think it's more relevant to this session as we defined our scenario. But promise to come back again for ISAR and not only go through the depths of that, like the Rust backend and the FFI stuff, but also help us to implement this scenario in the MJ Coffee app. And you already promised?
Yeah, I promise.
That's very good.
Yeah, we will look at indexes and full text search
That's
and everything.
fantastic. So let's get it started. So you have now are seeing my, you have access to my MJ Coffee app, and now you are seeing my.
I have, yeah, the famous MJ Coffee app,
Exactly.
yeah.
So then you are seeing whole things here. So now back and forth, there is a list of coffees here and a profile. I'm wondering if we can maybe store some settings on this page, for example. So what is the suggestion? How should we start with Hive? Like I know there is some kind of get a started, quick start, like on the website, but you as an author, like what is your suggestion? What should we do? Like,
Yeah, I haven't used it myself in some time, but the first thing you need to do for sure is to initialize it and to give it a location where it can store the data.
okay, so then probably the first thing I need to add it to my PubSpec YAML file, right?
Oh yeah, that would also be great to add
So
it
let's
as a
have it
dependency.
here. Then it's added. Do I need to add anything extra for Hive?
You need also the code generator.
Yeah, that
if you want to
build.
store objects, not only like primitive types, you need the build runner and the code
I
generator.
see. So there are some more dependencies to it then, right? So it's not just Hive.
Yeah, if you want to use the extension methods made for Flutter apps, you can also depend on Hive Flutter, I think it's called,
Okay.
but that's optional.
Okay. But to like a bare bone, let's say a start is just Hive as this package is there, right?
Yeah.
So are you going to get away from code generation, by the way?
Oh yes, I can't wait for macros and throw old code generation and slow code generation
That's
out.
very good. So, but then I guess so. We're gonna go and start with Hive here. Let me see. I can actually create maybe a service here already, or maybe I can actually just to simplify. I can go to my. Well, let's actually create a service. Let's call it Hive service maybe,
Sounds great.
and then I will have this like a single zone. Okay, so first thing first, you mentioned that we need to instantiate it somehow.
Exactly. We need to give it a path where it can store the data.
Okay,
Oh, do you have the path provider package?
I am not really sure. Let's see if I have it. I don't think I have it in this. No,
Okay, then, oh, I forgot. We need to add it too.
we need the path provider. Okay.
Yeah, it's not like Hive doesn't need it, but otherwise it's difficult to get a valid storage location for every platform. And path provider makes that super easy.
So now we have a path provider. There you go. So here is the Hive service under your control. And tell me, what should we do?
Okay, let's call hive.init.
You want to write it yourself, or do you want to write it? I can write it as well.
Yeah, where do you want to put it?
Whatever. I mean, just there. I think it's fine.
Okay.
What does this gonna do? Like, it's gonna initialize the database.
We are just giving Hive the path where it can find. where it can store the data.
Yeah.
As you can see, it takes a single parameter, and that's the path.
So it needs some kind of parameters passing to the init, apparently, isn't it?
Yeah. Let's also get path provider to get a valid directory. Where do you want to store it? In the documents
Yes,
directory?
let's do that. And that will automatically create the document directory, isn't it?
This method, it won't. I'm not even sure. Maybe it
Okay.
will. So this directory already exists.
Okay.
And the one we give Hive should be automatically
Okay.
created. So we are just
So
going.
then you pass the directory, and then Hive is going to be set up in that directory under the device.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, this looks good. It should do
So
the
therefore,
trick.
now let's say when I set up my application, let's go to main. So now we have this main function. Should I just initialize that before running the application, before run app?
Yeah, for this application, it's fine. But if you want to create a application in production, you should show like a loading indicator to wait for Hive to be initialized. Otherwise, your app won't start before it's initialized, and that's just bad user experience,
Okay.
I guess.
But let's do that then.
Yeah, for now it's good. Or do you want to create a waiting dialog or whatever?
Where?
I don't know. Somewhere before your
I
app
think
starts.
we can do it here. That was the plan. So let's
good.
do that. Let's then import this service and then say instance and then get initialized. So now at least we're making sure this is going to be ready when the app is initialized or the app is running. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So that's good. So the next step would be?
The next step is to open a box. And boxes are what Hive calls collections of data. And maybe we would call our box like profile settings, or I don't know. Settings.
Okay, so let me try to understand it. So boxes are a collection of data, like collection of key values, right? And
Exactly,
if I
yes.
want to, like, let's say if I'm coming from SQL background, so the box is similar to a table somehow. So your collection
Exactly,
of okay.
You can compare it.
Okay, that's good. So then we're gonna need to have a box, or as you said, collection. Why did you name it box?
Because I found it fit the whole naming thing. Like I'm a beekeeper, and like a beehive, it's made out of multiple boxes that are stacked on top of each other. And inside those boxes are frames. That's how they're called. And Hive actually also stores frames in your file. That's not visible to the user, but internally. So I found it fun to name it box.
Okay, sounds good. So then should I now immediately after initialization do that, or? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
But what if I want to have different boxes? Like, well, let's say profile settings is one box, and I want also different things, like for tiny things in different pages or different screens.
That's a great idea. Yeah, you can open multiple boxes, and there is a method to get them later by name.
Okay, so then
I think it's called hive.box.
Okay, so maybe what we can do then, I can just say here, create boxes, and and then is it like Hive dot
open box?
And that's gonna be a name, whatever name it is, right?
Yeah, settings or profile in our case.
Maybe just to make sure we're always getting this name correctly, maybe I can actually define an enum somewhere,
Great idea. Yeah.
boxes, a Hive box, and then I can say profile, something like that. So then always we know this is going to be similar everywhere, not a string. But I think we can get name right now.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
new.
Okay, good. So then, well, the name of this box apparently needs to be a string, isn't it? Yeah. So
It
then I
is,
can
yeah.
do that. So,
And we also need to await it because it creates a file and it's asynchronous, so we should
That's
wait
a
for it
good
to
thing
finish.
to know. So then it's gonna be future. It's actually void.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's good. So now we opened everything. So if I have next time, not just for profile, let's say by settings, then I can just pass it here. Okay,
Yeah,
let's actually
exactly.
open both of them right now. Okay, so then I can come here and say await create boxes. So now initialized, and maybe I should actually create this private, just make sure we don't do it several times. What if actually I call these open boxes with same name couple of times? What will happen?
You shouldn't. I think
Okay.
you shouldn't do it. It will
Okay.
fail, I think.
That's good. So now I created boxes as well. What else?
We are finished for now. Later, when we want to use the box, we need to get an instance. Or you can also put it, for example, in your state management or dependency injection. But you can also get the boxes directly from Hive.
Okay, that's a good idea. For now, well, I'm not gonna talk about state management things right now because we're just gonna focus on one thing. But we created Hive service where it's already a singleton. Maybe I can just to decouple, from Hive, just have this service instead. Maybe I can just create like a static whatever, maybe a method to get Hive, or let's say I can call it DB, where it's going to give me, or it can be even a getter, like DB is going to be Hive. Is it like that?
And
like I would need to use Hive, just Hive?
yes, it's hive.box. And then you have to give it a name of the box you want.
Okay, so then it cannot be it can be like a function though, right?
It can, yeah. We can also use like finals or something. Late final, I guess, would be
Okay, so
fine.
it can be like a data, like a function called, let's say, getDB or something like that, and then it will be the name,
Yeah.
which is let's say DB name. Yeah, but let's actually.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot you had your
Yeah,
full
I have
fancy
the
enum.
enum.
Yeah,
I
that's
was
much better.
thinking like maybe we can say
Sorry.
here DB name, where it's going to be DB name
Yeah, that's
dot
perfect. Yeah.
something like that. And that is going to be, what is the return of the box? It's going to be box.
I think it's just box. Yeah.
So actually it's a box with some kind of
For now, we can make it dynamic because we want to store multiple different types. But if you decide to only store one data type, you can give it a parameter
that
to
sounds good.
make it easier to use.
So it can be type safe then if you want. Okay, that's
It
very
can,
good.
yes.
So therefore from now we have this getDB, and then that's it, right? So now if I go to profile, let's say, well, let's say I have an idea to add a button here. Well, let's actually quickly do that. It can be just a quick example here. Let's say um, Boolean. Just we want to store a Boolean right now. Okay. When I hit this save, uh, imagine that this is a save button, which is going to save a Boolean or save a
Yeah.
Boolean, let's say. So normally we have a form, a list of settings and things like that, right? So then that's easy to recognize and save all of them. And here's also one question for you. I'll ask it right away. So we're gonna have Hive service, and then get DB, and then let's call it set profile, for example, and that could be Hive profile. So what will happen then afterwards? Do I have some kind of like, how can I add this something value to this DB? I have the DB right now.
The best idea would probably to store the result in a
Okay,
variable, in a
let's call
local
it
variable, like box.
box.
Yeah, and now you can use the instance methods of box to like
So there
set
is
or
some
get
kind of like add
data.
all and things like that.
Yeah, there are two different
I see.
modes how to access it. You can either use it like a map and give it keys and store values, or you can use it like a list and give it indices and also values.
So this is the difference between this add at all and also this put and the set.
Exactly. Put uses the keys and add uses the index. In our case, probably put is correct because we have a well-defined set of
let's
settings.
say it's a Boolean settings, and then I'm gonna just say true, for example, right? So therefore,
you should
go ahead.
You should await the result to make sure it's saved.
Oh, like this one. Okay. So
yes, exactly.
One question, probably this is not gonna be here. It's gonna be somewhere maybe there. Let's say, because I'm also thinking to get this value right now somewhere here, like Boolean, and I can say box dot like get. Is it get or get at?
Get, yeah.
So get at is
It's
for the
get.
array, or what is it get at? Okay, so we can take a look then together. So then in this,
oh no, it's exactly. Sorry, it's to get by index.
Yeah, okay. So there you go. Now if I hit this button, I probably need to actually refresh because we did a lot of initialization and things like that. There you go. Okay, now it's null.
Yeah, the reason is Hive is not reactive, so we need to actually use something like set state.
Yeah, definitely.
To refresh
We
our
should
UI.
definitely do that then. Maybe we should convert it to a stateful, and then we can have. Actually, we should have like. Do I need to like have the? In this case, just asking you, like, should I change box the whole things all the time and then set a state on that, or should I just like I can here?
You mean?
Yeah, I can
get another instance of box.
Here, for example, I can just say this is a box, and then in initial method, like I can come back and say initial state. So I can say my box is this, but then every time I change something, then can I just change it and then that retrieve the whole data? Is it a good way of doing that, or in this case you're going to do like key by key in that variable? How do you approach this?
So the box instances don't change. It's fine to do it like you had it before, but I think this is also a good style to initialize your dependency in its state. It will only be called once when the widget is created. So this looks good to me. But the other way would also be good because the box instance doesn't actually change, only the content.
Okay, so then I can say now, let's actually define this. Let's go down. Then in this case, when I actually change this, I can actually do this again. It's not reactive. You said, right, I need to explicitly do that, right? That's not.
No, that's not necessary. The box instance won't change.
Just
you can
empty.
make the set state empty.
So then if I change this, well, does not seem to work. Well, it's always, well, okay. So wait a second. So what we can do, we can say, like whatever it is, just toggle it maybe. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, sounds good. So then, well,
perfect.
This is pretty simple. So now if I actually have, let's say, what kind of data type I can store here? This is a Boolean. Can I just have the whole list of something like an array, for example?
You can, yes. By default, you can store all primitive types, lists, and maps. And if you use the generator and annotate your classes, you can.
I got an error, I think, because I changed this to something that was not expected. That's okay. It was a Boolean, and I changed it to that length, and that was the problem. That's okay. So then, this is simple, but how about some more advanced use cases? Like, what if I want to store a whole object? Like, let's say, I don't know. I have like maybe a coffee object here. Actually, I have a coffee object here. Let's actually have that as an example. Yeah. Let's go to menu. So here's my menu list where it's going to consume a list of coffees, right? If I go to menu, I have actually a list of coffees. So here's my, yes, it's constant. Actually, let's say I want to store this constant to Hive. So let's say on my service, like Hive service, as soon as I want to open here, maybe coffees. Can I do that? Or I don't need to open another box for copies?
No, you don't need to, but it's probably a good idea to not store the
or maybe I can have a box called data.
So maybe
and then in data I can have coffees and a list of coffees.
Yeah, that's also good.
Like that. Because coffees is actually a key here for me. So let's have it. Let's have it that way. Then I'm gonna actually open this data. So right after I open these boxes, I want to store this to the database. I know that this is static right now, but imagine that this is coming from some kind of database in HTTP, and I want to store it right away.
Yeah, the problem right now is that Hive doesn't know your object and it doesn't know how to store it. So we have two options. We can either define like a type adapter, it's called, and manually convert our object to binary data to allow Hive storing it. But that's a little tedious, and it also it's error prone if you make changes in the future. The better idea is to use the generator and give the coffee object some annotations. Let the generator generate the adapter for us.
That sounds good. Can we Can we do that right now? Can you?
We can, yes. So our coffee, okay, yeah, that's a little difficult. The coffee object has a name, price, and ID. That's easy to store in Hive. But it's more difficult to
Okay,
store
I see that.
the icon data. So I guess we can either remove it for now, or we can write a type
what I'm
adapter
thinking
to
is when we
convert
actually
it manually.
generate this, can we omit this or maybe convert it at the time of generating the adapter for it? Or maybe we can just, I don't know, maybe we can just, I can actually remove it right now.
We can, yeah, that's also good. Or store only the icon data point.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Like
maybe we
integer,
can just
the
like
icon.
have the code point. That's it, just the integer. But that sounds good. I mean, what we can do, maybe we can just remove this. But what is the solution for this problem? As you said,
the solution is to write your own type adapter. Because unfortunately, you can't annotate the icon data. You could either create your own class, like Hive icon data, and use that instead and annotate it, or to write your own type adapter for the icon data class.
So then now in my class here, coffee, we want to use generator to create an adapter you mentioned. Let's go ahead and do that.
Yes, exactly. So the first step is to annotate your coffee class with Hive
so we
type.
have an annotation here. What is type ID?
Yes, and type ID is Hive's way of knowing what class it is. So we can start by 1, and each class we want to store gets a new ID. Or maybe you can use even your index, your enum.
Okay,
yeah,
you mean that I can create an enum of the types? Yeah, I understand.
No, you already have it.
Hive boxes, you mean? And then, well, data.
Exactly, yes.
And index. The type ID must be integer. Yes. So then index is?
Yes.
Index is integer.
Is index not constant?
That's interesting because it says, oh, it's enum.
No, I think the problem is that index is not a constant.
Yeah. Definitely.
And you can only use constants.
Okay, then there you go. That's okay. Let's go for that.
Okay. And every property of your class you have to annotate with Hive field.
But that was my question right now. Let's say, should I just say like 0 or 1 or something? Okay. So then let me just quickly do that.
Yeah.
So that was my question. So if I just omit right now an annotation for icon data, it will not generate that at all, right?
I think that doesn't work in this case because your constructor requires the icon data.
Here.
The coffee icon.
I can make it optional.
And that's where it will fail.
That's okay.
Yeah, then it should be
fine.
So
in this case, then it will kind of omit coffee icon because it can be null and it's not also annotated with Hive field. Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So, okay. And now I need to build runner to generate some kind of code, right? But
exactly. Oh, one step we forgot. We need to add this part coffee.g.dart.
We need to add what?
That the build runner requires.
Oh, okay, the part one.
Here at the top of the file.
Okay, that's good.
Don't we have Hive generator?
No, we have not.
Oh, I thought we added it before.
Yeah, we have not added. Yeah, that
we
was
need
an
it.
interesting part of it.
Sorry.
Okay, so then it's Hive generator. Because I was wondering, like, how this gonna generate all in one package? Usually, it's
Yeah.
separated package for annotation and generation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it can't be in the same package, unfortunately.
So that's good. I guess now then just run it again. But yeah.
Yeah.
So
And cross our
we
fingers
added
that
now
it
Hive
works.
only. So I remember I've seen on pop.dev Hive Flutter package as well. Then what is that one?
It has some extension methods. For example, I think it's called init Flutter, and there you don't have to provide a path if you don't want to. It will
I
find
see.
it.
So it's just
it will find
more
a default path
handy,
if
method.
you don't give it
Okay.
one. Yes. And I also think there are some widgets that refresh when
I
your
see.
database changes
Okay.
to make it a little more
So
reactive.
then now I have, I think, the file ready. So I can actually open and look at that. So this is the whole things that you've done. Okay.
And that's also what you can write by hand, by the way. If you want to convert a custom type, you can create a type adapter and implement the read and write
And that's
method.
Now
and
it makes sense when you say you need to write an
store whatever
adapter
you
for
want.
icon data. So you mean that you need to kind of get this
Exactly, yes.
and just try to convert all of these fields with something. So as of now, you have this icon data,
Yeah.
for example, is not there because we have not defined it. So, but we can actually generate this ourselves without generation ID.
Yeah, and exactly. And 2 lines before it uses the reader, the binary reader, to actually read those fields from the database.
Okay, now it makes sense. That's good. So is that all? Now I'm able to add this to my almost. Okay, something else.
Almost. Yeah, yes, we need to tell Hive to use this adapter because it's not able to find it by itself. So probably in our service, we can call
so
hive.register adapter.
Where should I do that? Like again in
and
it?
tell it to use this adapter.
Like before creating boxes or after
in the service.
Okay, maybe I should create like register
before
adapters. And future.
That's a good idea.
How should I register? You mentioned Hive dot. Exactly, that's the register adapter. And
register
the adapter would be coffee.
I believe.
Coffee adapter.
Perfect.
There you go. Is it?
It's coffee adapter. Yeah.
No, it's just void. So it doesn't need to be a thing. So then I should register it right after or before boxes? Before. There you go.
Before.
Okay. Sounds good. So now we are ready. So now actually let's say this is another service and something else, and I get the data, list of coffees, and I want to add them to a database. Like, let's say store coffees in Hive. Or now we are in Hive, we can just call this. So in this case, then I'm going to say, like, get DB. That can be, what do we have? Data, Hive box. name, not name, and then I can just, yeah,
We have two options now.
okay.
Either we store the coffee maybe by ID, like a map, or we can use the indexes and just add all and insert all the
Okay,
objects,
so I
and
think,
then we have them by
well,
index.
here's the things. In this scenario, I'm actually happy to store the whole object, a list of coffees. Then every time I want to retrieve them, I can retrieve all of them. So that's
Yeah,
what I
that's
want to
also great.
do. And so in this case,
Then
then
let's start
I'm
the
gonna
whole
say
list.
this is my DB. Let's say this is the box, and then in box I will add. Now here's the case: add or add all. Add.
If you want to add them separately, you will add all. And if you want to add them as a list, so you can
Oh,
retrieve
okay.
the list
I
later,
see what you mean.
then you use add.
Okay, so I guess I want to. So that depends on how I want to retrieve it. So every time I retrieve it, then if I will receive one array, if I add them one by one, then I will receive again an array. Is there any
Exactly.
difference?
No, if you retrieve them one by one,
I see.
you will get the individual objects.
Uh-huh.
And you can also access them by index.
Yeah.
And if you just use
Okay.
add, you will
So
just have a single index. Maybe in your case, we would use put and give it
yeah,
also
actually I
a
want to
key
do
like
that.
coffee
So
data
let's say I have
and
these
store them as
coffees.
a whole list.
There you go. And then I just use put, and then this could be, well, my list of coffees for sure
Yes.
from this. Yeah, imagine this is coming um, from HTTP
Yeah.
call, HTTP get, e.g. Okay, so then this
Yeah.
is going to be like await. So that's good. So then I'm gonna have a sync here. That's gonna be a feature. So well, again, e.g. and after an HTTP call. Let's say now we're storing this data. So what I'm gonna do, what I want to do then in this case, I want to go back to my menu where I have this list. I want to get that from Hive then. Let's imagine this is going to be coffees. Then I can say Hive services dot instance dot get. Oh, I still need to open the DB. Sorry, like, say the DB what it is. So that's going to be
Yeah.
data. And then I can say get and coffees. So this is going to return a list of coffees. Is it going to return like the exact coffee object? Like,
Yes.
okay.
Not the same instance.
But then in this case, now I see that is something problem. There is a problem here is because, well, I don't define what is that. But I still, it
Yeah,
doesn't
that
work
should do the
because
trick.
I think it's because, well, it's because probably I should do it like db. Yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. So I don't think we
Oh,
can
we
do
should
that
await it, right?
here then. I should await this and then do that, right? like that?
I think we
But
need
I
to
can't do that
await the
because I
result
need
of
to
get.
create here
No,
is the thing.
I'm not sure actually.
Is it?
No, this should be fine actually.
No, it's synchronous. Yeah,
I
that's
think,
correct.
yeah. GetDB,
But then
is
why
it
it's
asynchronous? I forgot.
it says the instance number copies can't be
What
accessed
is
in
it
initial.
complaining about
Okay.
then? Oh yeah, we have to make
Yes,
it late,
that's
right?
exactly what.
Late final, and
Or
then
actually, I wanted
it
to
should do.
maybe copy this here.
Yes.
Okay. So then, well, what you said is that all right? So if I now reload,
Maybe even hot restart. I'm not sure to make
yeah,
sure
I just did a hot
the adapter
restart.
is initialized.
It's coming. Magic. Okay, so that's a good
Awesome.
scenario. So you have some data, you can store it in cache, and it's coming. But it's yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
It's
it's great
definitely
for
great.
network calls, for example, to cache them.
So I am a little bit surprised right now because I think there's something wrong here, to be honest, Simon. You see the icons, it should not show the icons.
You're right, it shouldn't. Oh no, I think I gave you wrong information before. It is the same instance of the object as long as you don't restart the app, because it keeps it in cache. So you actually get the object with icon. If you restart the
I
app,
mean, if I stop and start
without
again, then
saving the list of objects,
everything is
the
gone.
icon should go
Okay,
away.
now it makes sense. But at least now
Yeah.
it shows me the data is coming from this database because I see something. Okay. Very cool. Very cool.
Yes, for
So
sure.
is there, let's come back to the show, to the last part of it, where I usually ask a question here. I say, what is the most interesting, let's say, feature that you implemented in Hive and you are very proud of that? How it?
The most interesting feature is how it works internally. I had to try a lot of different solutions to come up with a way to make it performant in Dart. Because like I said, it's difficult to do it in background. You don't have access to memory mapping or something like that. And that's why Hive is append only. That means it only ever writes to the end of your file, because random access is expensive in Dart. So every new data you store is written to the end. And even if you delete data, it doesn't actually delete it from the file, but it writes a tombstone to the end of the file. And every now and then it cleans up the file and
I see.
actually removes the data.
Cool.
But it doesn't do it instantly.
Well, this is actually very cool. So any tips or
really
tricks or anything that we should keep into account when it comes to Hive and implementation of Hive?
Yes, be careful to take into account the rules in the documentation when it comes to updating your class. You are, for example, not allowed to change the type of a field and give it the same field ID as before. That will corrupt your database. Make sure if you put a new field or change the type of a field, use a new field ID to make.
That's a very cool
to allow
tip.
Hive
And that's
to
very common actually when
migrate
you
the data internally.
initially do some kind of modeling and then you realize, oh, this type is probably not the one that I want and I want to change it to something else. And so then
and then you think,
that's
the field ID, I can reuse it. It's not needed
interesting
anymore, but
tip.
that's not the case.
So, any last word that you want to mention about Hive and in general about yourself, about show?
Not about Hive, but just about how much I love the Flutter community and shows like this, and also like all the people who put so much effort into making it better.
I'm
And I
definitely,
really appreciate that,
I
and
am
I
really
love being part of
sure
the
that
community.
Flutter community is proud of you because of your amazing work for Flutter community. And I had this mission to introduce you visually to Word and Flutter community, what you've done and who you are. And people are like now knowing you better. Hopefully they will contact you and even support you. And please go to Hive or any other packages repository from on GitHub where Simon is maintainer, and send love, hypes or PRs and issues, and and support him in any way that you can. And absolutely. Then Simon, thank you very much for
Yeah, never
joining me.
hesitate
It
to
was
ask
an
questions.
amazing session. I learned a lot myself. I hope everyone is watching this video also kind of learn, a lot. So thank you very much. Then have a great day.